I have 6:31, so calling the Monday, April 6, 2026 Lee County Regional Planning Commission meeting to order. Roll call.
Chuck Beckman, absent. Ben Forster,
Here.
Ellen Smith,
Here.
Emily Pratt,
Here.
Chris Jones,
Here.
Amy Palmer.
Here.
Okay, has everybody had a chance to read through the minutes of last month? And if so, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve last month's.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes approved. We'll start with new business and item number 4 on the agenda, petition number 26 PC 89 by Amy Litzoff, a petition for a Lisa waiver for the purpose of building a home. Hopefully I got your name right. We'll let Alice start.
Yes.
We're a nice relax. Don't be.
Jonathan is going to go get a laptop so we can display the property. So if you can just give us a minute.
Sure.
Amy approached my office here recently. They are looking to parcel off approximately 2 acres to build a home that would ultimately be next to her parents. It's her parents' property, approximately 13 acres. The Lisa score was 273, and anything over 224 is failing. So as part of the process, if they wish to appeal that score, they come to the board tonight for that process. 3048. Here.
Just, yeah, so I didn't know. Just so you know.
Okay, as Amy just stated, they're looking to parcel off 3 to 4 acres. The minimum requirement for parceling off would be 2 acres, so I apologize for that. Up on the screen, you will see a photo of the property in question. As you can see, it is zoned ag, as are the parcels surrounding it. It does have, I believe that's 39 running to the west of it.
Should we swear her in?
Yep,
Okay.
we'll have you stand and swear you in. So if you want to stand, raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Okay. All right, go ahead and kick on your mic. And if you want to give the board your side of,
So my parents have owned the property for about 25, 26 years. And my kids have grown up all out there, and we've wanted to be able to build over there. So to parcel off and build and continue that farm life there. And so for the past, since my parents have lived there, they have used the whole main area as a hayfield for their horses that they have. And so that is Our hope is to continue that, to build our own little hobby farm, as well as continue to farm the hay field for any animals that we would have. So
And which part of that property are you looking to?
So if you see, yes, so as of right now, all the way along 39, there is like that red area, that's a red barn, and then there's their house. So kind of that forward, to the left, just a little bit, that darker, yep, that section there, and straight back to the highway, yep, and then to the highway.
And are you looking for an additional driveway to be added, or are you going to share a driveway?
Yeah, it would be an additional driveway.
Okay.
In order to comply with the Illinois Plat Act, the parcel would have to have its own driveway. They would not be able to have an easement.
Gotcha.
So you mentioned a hobby farm,
Mhm.
and how far out in the future are you considering that?
It would probably be a few years before that would happen, to be honest. Possibly right now with my parents living there, if we were to get my daughter, my kids are into horses. They have horses. So if that was ever to be that, but eventually probably not until another 3 to 5 years before anymore.
How do you define hobby farm?
Yep, more so, like I said, my daughter is into horses. I've always had horses, so horses and goats, more so just, not for, more so just animals, and if she was to get into any 4-H or stuff like that, so.
What's your feelings on chickens in R2 zoning?
Jeez.
I don't know what that.
You can have as many chickens as you want at that property. Then,
So you'd have your own septic and well, is that correct?
Correct.
Do you reside within the county already?
Yeah, we are currently, so we sold our house last fall, so we are staying with them until we
Okay.
know what we're doing. So right now, yeah.
And so like you guys and then your parents are taking care of the hayfield
Y-
and all
yes.
the okay.
Yes.
I don't know if this is applicable, but do your parents have a succession plan for their farmhouse? Like, who would they leave it to?
I don't have the clear. Our hope would be to be able to at some point have that, and then whether we know who lives, or whether they sold it off with the rest of that. So there's not a clear answer to that, to be honest.
we had talked about the accessory dwelling units and you had looked into that. Why was that not an option?
So I know when I spoke with the septic that they have currently could not take on more than what it has. And then just looking at it, what they had said when I had spoke to, sorry, I'm trying to remember who it was, who does the septic and all that.
Yep.
They had just said that as far as that, there was no way to do the septic sharing it. And so then I wasn't sure how close it had to be for the rest of that.
Got it. So if you look at our Lisa code and Ellen, you know from experience how Lee County has traditionally handled these types of situations. This does not meet the definition of what is a farm or farmer by Lee County standards. This is a tricky one. We look at what we have with the interstate to the west. It's the chances of that area west of the house being turned back into some type of row crop farming is probably not going to happen. They are doing some type of hay farming, have horses, so there are agricultural uses on the property. So this is a tricky one.
So is this before us because it's zoned Ag 1?
This is before you because it is zoned Ag 1 and it received a LISA score over 224.
Okay.
So according to the ordinance, if you score over 224, it is considered not buildable unless you appeal that LISA and the planning commission waives that LISA score.
Even though it's not considered a farm.
So that is what the code would require. So let me pull it up here.
Can you zoom the map out just a little bit? I'm having them zoom the map out. Yeah. A little bit more.
Okay, so it is the policy of the county to preserve prime farmland for agricultural purposes and to discourage the random development of farmland for residential or other non-agricultural purposes unless serviced by a public sewer system or unless located in areas away from prime farming or unless required for the farm residents of the farmer or family thereof actively farming the property on which the farm residence is to be constructed, and where no other farm housing is available. So that's the county policy. They adopted the LISA to help determine what is and what isn't agricultural purpose.
Yeah, I don't recall us ever approving anything like this before, but you're right, it's right on 39.
And that's the thing. We've looked at. So I caution this board in setting a precedence that we aren't prepared to defend or carry forward. So the thing is it's hard to make, it's hard to say, well, it might be okay in this situation and not the next unless we have a valid reason why. So if this board was to vote to waive that LISA, I would just ask that you state specifically what those reasons are, that they're conducting, hay farming on the property, the 39 to the west, the likelihood that it's ever going to go back into row crop farming. And farming isn't just row crop farming, it's also livestock farming. So we have to consider that as well. So that is all I ask, is that if the board chooses to waive, that we have a good record of why we did so that we can mirror that in the future. If you are not prepared to set that precedence, then you should vote it down.
So I think in this instance, this is a little unique because of where the current housing is already placed. Such that, like you had said, the area that is currently hay, which is agricultural between the current house and the interstate, is probably not going to be farmed in the future anyway. So I'm not sure how this creates necessarily a precedent, just because there's already housing there that would, I think, prevent row cropping anyway between that house and 39. That's my opinion.
You feel that the addition of a residence at this location would help support agricultural activities in the area?
Well, I mean, if they want to continue to farm it, I mean, it would be one thing if they just wanted to plop down and make 2 or 3 acres and just mow 13 acres and it not be agricultural at all, but that's not their plans. Their plans are to continue it agriculturally.
Okay.
So I think that fits as well. But that's my opinion.
And the intention to add and enhance with goats and
Mhm.
other critters. I'm not against it. It's an oddly shaped property.
Yeah.
It's hard to farm at any scale with current farm equipment.
Correct. And with
Hmm.
the interstate being right there, that I just feel kind of adds a limitation as well.
Which isn't the county's position to if it's already owned by a family member that lives there to promote housing in the country.
If, according to the code, if they're a farmer as defined by the
Which
code.
they're making hay and raising horses
So,
to support the family farm, longevity.
so I have to look at how our code specifically defines it. So do they meet what our code defines? Is the majority of their income come from farming?
Does the majority of most farmers' income come from farming?
And that's, that is why I find this one to be extremely tricky. I see arguments for both ways. Glad I'm not in your shoes. I think you're on the right path, though.
I think it's an okay use of this property based just on,
Well, just on 39 and Merriman Road,
it
make it an odd shaped property for even
Yeah.
a mid-sized tractor to make good of that ground.
Correct. We'd be, what, pointed rows? Isn't that the term?
any more questions? Any more discussion? Is there a motion to waive the Lisa? And be specific for your reasoning.
I would move to waive the Lisa based on location next to the interstate, location of current dwellings, current and future agriculture activities.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Any opposed?
Congrats.
Recommend we waive the Lisa.
Thank you guys so much.
I'm gonna touch base with them real quick. You guys can keep on going if you want, and I'll be right back.
And good luck in your future endeavors.
Yeah.
Yes, good luck with all that.
Goats and
Now,
horses.
now that you're no longer under oath, what are your feelings on chickens in the R2 district?
I'm not sure.
Ben,
What?
goats will keep them
I got to
busy.
run the first meeting.
Can I ask a question? What's the minimum lot size for like a plot like that? Like how many houses could they put on it?
The county will let you section off a parcel into two 2-acre parcels for housing. And everything else on that parcel, original parcel, has to be 5 or more.
So 13 minus 4, 9. So they could put 1.75 other lots on there.
Yeah, but that's not what they were asking.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, but that's what I,
They'd have
What
to
I was
come
saying,
back and
that would be
justify
so
it for
unlikely.
some other reason.
Hmm?
They'd have to come back and justify it for some other reason.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. They could put more than 2 houses on a 13-acre lot. I had somebody that was gonna put 2.5-acre strips and put 6-house subdivision into 20 acres, 18 acres. It's craziness.
okay.
That's not what they want to do.
Take one and sit around. This. All right. Did you announce the petitions, Ben?
I did not yet.
Okay, if you want to do all 3, I'll probably handle all 3 at once.
Okay.
Is that something too?
Next on the agenda are three petitions, 26 PC 86, brought by the Lee County zoning administrator. It's a petition to amend Chapter 15, Performance Standards, Section 15, Wind Energy Systems, under Title 10 zoning regulations of the Lee County Code of Ordinances to comply with the provisions of 55 ILCS 55.12020 and the amendments thereto pursuant to Public Act 1040458. Next petition is 26 PC 87, brought forth by Lee County zoning administrator, a petition to amend Chapter 15 Performance Standards, Section 20, Solar Energy Systems under Title 10 zoning regulations of the Lee County Code of Ordinances to comply with the provisions of 55 ILCS 55.12020 and the amendments thereto pursuant to Public Act 104-0458. Third petition is 26 PC 88 by the Lee County zoning administrator, a petition to amend Chapter 15 Performance Standards under Title 10 zoning regulations of the Lee County Code of Ordinances by creating Section 22 Energy Storage Systems to comply with the provisions of 55 ILCS 55.12020 et al. And 55 ILCS 55.12024 and the amendments thereto pursuant to Public Act 1040458. Do you promise to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right.
Okay, we'll start with the wind ordinance. I provided you all with those drafts. For wind and solar, there were very few changes to that form. So starting with wind, I went back through and I added some more definitions. They had removed definitions that they had under their 2023. The terms still are in the ordinance. They still apply. Definitions add clarity, which makes my job easier. So I threw in more definitions because they're in there and it doesn't hurt to define them. So agricultural impact mitigation agreement, aircraft detection lighting system, as-built drawings, things of that nature. So I think the biggest change to the wind will have to do with the road use section. Under our 2023 ordinance, and that is starting on page 8 of 19, our county engineer, Dave Anderson, had written the language that we adopted in the 2023 code. It is a little bit above and beyond what these model ordinances have. Is it more restrictive than what the state requires? We don't believe so. So what we've done is ultimately, Mr. Anderson, as county engineer, looked at this language and he said, ultimately, it's decent. It's what the state requires. His only concern had to do with this consulting fund. So currently, we require a consulting fund for the road use. So they pay an amount that is determined by Mr. Anderson, up to $100,000. It's based on the size of the project. So if you have a 5 megawatt, you might only be posting 25 or 50,000. So he does look at that. That money then is held in the county's trust, and we pay out anytime that we need to. So road expenses, attorney's fees, we already have that money for us to access and be able to then pay out at the company's expense. The other option is that we spend the money, we provide them receipts, we wait for them to pay us back. It's not really ideal for the county. It's a little bit concerning. So we looked at this as kind of twofold. Yes, it does benefit the county. We know we have the money to cover these expenses when they occur. The benefit to the company, though, is that this is an amount that is established and set in stone. This isn't a variable. So this isn't something they're going to have to guess in the future of how much are they going to have to pay out. They already know there's X amount of dollars being held to cover these costs. They don't have to worry about, something coming in and them not being prepared for it. So the less variables they have in their plan, they're happy. Since 2023, we've had that consulting fund language in there, and we have not gotten any pushback from any of the companies so far. They have gotten a little concerned when they saw 100,000, especially these smaller projects, but once we reassure them and have them talk to Dave, it's a non-issue. Everyone moves forward. So that is what we are looking to do in the wind is we are going to keep the model ordinance language, but we've also added paragraph 5 on page 9, and that is to cover that consulting fund. Other than that, there was very few changes. I went through and just capitalized some of the defined terms for clarity. We did expand it where it says zoning administrator. It now says the building and zoning department, as my office has changed in the last couple of years. So those are the little minor changes that we saw throughout. Any questions on the wind?
Yes.
Okay.
So for the consulting fund for the roads, does that only cover county roads or does that cover township roads too? And I'll let you answer that first.
Yes. So that would be for the county roads, only if there's county roads, because that's the only authority. Those are the only roads that we would have authority over. So those companies or townships have their own authority, but they kind of follow our same process. Now, I don't know how they do, if they require a consulting fund, but I have not had any, I guess I haven't had any road commissioner raise concern one way or the other on this. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, as these are fairly remote, they get onto smaller township roads. We have had road damage in South Dixon from projects that they repair,
Yes.
but there's no compensation for it.
So this requires that they have a road use agreement with the township as well. So if they're on township road, before we'll give them a building permit, they have to enter into that agreement with the township.
Okay.
So the township has that ultimate authority, though, to figure out how they want that road use agreement to work. Typically, they follow the same process that the county has. There's an attorney, her name's Cheryl Cherney. And she has worked with Lee County at creating these road use agreements. She also helps the townships when they come to her. So she's willing to jump in. So
Yeah, I mean, are the townships educated that they can have a consulting fee in their road use agreement?
that would be a question. That's a legal question. I'm trying to think of whose legal should be answering it, though. I would talk to first the township attorney, if they have an attorney.
They typically don't.
Okay. That's a tough one. Because ultimately, I would think if they're entering an agreement, they might be able to work out something where they held money in escrow for that purpose under that agreement. Is that what you're trying to get to, or?
I mean,
Okay.
are these funds available to the township if they mess up a township road but don't mess up a county road?
Yes, but
Because
it is,
county roads are typically a little beefier, heftier.
yes. So, but that's where it falls then to that road commissioner to make sure he or she gets what they want from that agreement. And unfortunately, the county cannot have any role in that. We have no authority. So we are pretty hands-off. We make sure that they're aware of all the resources that are out there, but we try not to step on any toes when it comes to that. That can get a little bit dicey.
Are you sending that to both the township supervisor and the road commissioner? Okay,
Mhm. Yes.
fair enough.
Yep. Any other questions on the wind?
Yeah, so what if the costs go over? Or is the amount that they're told, is that the limit?
Nope. In the language, it states that they would have to pay above and beyond if those costs arise. It's stated both in, I believe, paragraph 5, additional funds shall be required as deemed necessary by the county engineer. Also, we have additional language later in the code where if we hire a third party, consultant, engineer, anything, that the company would have to pay for that, any of those costs above and beyond.
And then at the end of construction, any unused funds go back to the company?
Yes. Any more on wind? Okay, I'll move on to solar. Solar's pretty much like wind. I added some definitions that they just decided to remove this time around. We added that consulting fund paragraph to the road use portion. And the other big change with this one would be vegetative screening, which starts at the bottom of page 6. Under our current ordinance, we have a visual screening option where non-participating landowners can either get a screen placed on their property or they get a payment equivalent to what that would cost to have that screen installed on their property. While the intent is good, we were wanting to make sure that our constituents were being treated fairly by these companies and were being compensated if necessary. Unfortunately, the way that it's written has really been a bear for my office to administer. I've run into repeated, just where it conflicts upon itself, and I'm running into issues. It's kind of come down to a case by case. My office has to look at it and make a determination of what makes sense, what's most logical, given the language and how it's worded. We have one project that the screening, there's 2 houses south of the project. One is taking the option for payment and the other one's having the screen placed. Now, the one that's taking the payment is actually going to get the benefit of the screen and receive a payment. So how is that fair? So things like that is what I've been running into where it just doesn't quite make sense. So what I'm proposing is to go back to a more general, looser language. We're going to require that the screen be placed to benefit non-participating landowners. We will address that during the hearing time with the zoning hearing officer, where that should be applied. We are also including the option for a waiver. So if these companies wish to, they can negotiate with the landowner, and instead of having to put up the vegetative screen, they can offer them something else in exchange. That agreement a memorandum of understanding will have to be recorded that that's taken place, but other than that, that would be the requirement. So that ultimately, we are getting the same conclusion, but it's not as messy as how we had it worded. So landowners still have the option of receiving a payment. They will just have to negotiate directly with the company. We aren't directly telling the company that you need to pay people money. That gets a little bit out of what we should probably be doing. Other than that, I don't think there were any other major changes to the solar section. Again, cleaned up. Added some capitalization, cleaned up where it said zoning administrator to say building and zoning department. Any questions related to the solar? Okay, there's no questions related to the solar. Have Amy step back due to a conflict of interest, and we will proceed. Here. Okay, this one is interesting. The draft they gave us was really pretty puny. It seemed to have a lot of gaps. The biggest thing we've noticed is the lack of the AMA. So met with, this past Thursday, I met with our county administrator. I met with our county engineer, Dave Anderson, and one of our assistant state's attorneys, Stephanie Sasser, to talk about this. So in terms of the AMA, how we are going to address that is at one point we talked about adding the standards into the language directly. Our legal has advised against that because we don't know if it is ever going to be adopted by the state. We are making assumptions that may end up creating problems in the future. So what we are doing, and if you go to page 8, we've added a paragraph that basically states, this is what the AMA does. It establishes these standards for construction and deconstruction. While the state doesn't have an AMA for energy storage, we as a county will be applying these standards as conditions of their special use permit. So while we are not writing it specific to into the ordinance, we are letting them know up front that these are important to us and we will be looking to address these through our conditions. So I don't think that's unreasonable. Anywhere that AMA is more restrictive than the state ordinance, we would have to let the state ordinance prevail, which is again another reason why they advised against us adopting that language directly into our code. Going through this, added definitions that were lacking. And added little things to beef up language. So okay, so on page 5, the farmland drainage plan, we making it clear that a drain tile survey is required. It's implied, but now we're making it explicit. Also adding the Illinois Association of Drainage Districts. These companies don't even know where to locate this information. The state is telling them they have to follow it. So I've added that so they at least know what office in the state they need to go to obtain that information. Crop loss. Emily, I need your expertise on this. The second sentence states the facility owner shall repair or pay for the repair of all damage to subsurface drainage system caused by the construction of the ESS. It did not have a time frame. So I put in as soon as reasonably practicable, which mirrors what they state below for surface drainage restoration. What is a reasonable time frame that a farmer would need this repaired if it was damaged?
I'm trying to think of, they're trying to get it done as much as they can before spring and get it repaired.
So.
But I'm not sure that there's a, I.
So for
sure
this
the
situation,
standard would be,
I mean, we could do 90 days, 180 days, 60 days, or as soon as reasonably practicable, which,
Is very subjective.
what,
I would
Right,
make
yeah.
it commercially reasonable. Just because somebody wants to go with the lowest price contractor to fix it, doesn't mean they're the ones that are available to fix it
okay.
in a
Can-
commercially reasonable fashion.
right. I mean, it could be, they could
Yeah, 'cause-
state that it took years to find someone to fix it.
Yeah.
That would be the problem.
Okay.
Um,
So as soon as commercially reasonably,
Commercially reasonable.
okay. Within 180 days? Is
Well,
that
if
too
it's-
much?
If it's not done by June, you're not putting crops there that year.
oh,
And
maybe like
that's-
April 15th, but you know what I mean? Like, there's also the problem of if they tear it up while the crop is growing, if it's not repaired, there's possible crop loss just because the drainage is not working. I mean, I think that they should have to get with the producer and make a plan. Because it depends on when this is happening. If there's standing crops in the field, it should probably be up to the producer whether they want them to go in there and destroy more crops, fixing it, or pay for the damages and leave it.
Which they're not I mean, they're building this on a parcel. It's not like they're encroaching on other people's tile.
They could be. And they could be
Correct.
messing up tile for everyone, depending on where that tile's going and what water it's carrying in from whom.
Sure.
So, but it ultimately comes down to whoever's tile they're whoever's property it is on, that they are possibly causing issues with.
I
So
would
the,
put commercially reasonable because they can prove if they've had contacts with tiling companies to come repair it. If nobody's available, nobody's available.
what if we said they have to contact the landowner within so many days of realizing the damage? And that's the thing. I don't
Your
know
average
enough about
construction
this.
worker that screws up a tile is not going to say a word to anyone.
So and that's the thing, at what point do they find out there's a problem? Is it a heavy rain? Is it how do you find out tiles damaged?
Well, so you are requiring them to get a drainage plan.
Mhm.
So they know before they begin if there is drainage on the property that could possibly be affected.
Okay.
I think probably at that point, they would need to get together with whatever landowner that they are, whoever's land they are working with. And I think they need to make a plan with the owner to replace or repair tile that's affected by operations.
Should we state that the timeframes for making repairs should be a part of their drainage plan?
I think so.
Okay.
Because like I said, if they're gonna go through there in the fall and the crop's already gone, 90
6
days,
months.
6 months, probably no one is going to be too upset about that. But at certain parts of the year, depending on when they're gonna come in there and do that, the answer could be different.
Okay.
And if it's already in the plan, then hopefully that means they would be working with someone already to repair it.
Right.
You don't have somebody on the line.
And that's, you're 100% right. I totally didn't put the 2 and 2 together, but they should be working some of these things out as part of their plan, you would think. But we can make it clear that they will need to do so. That way there's no guessing. Any more comments on that? Okay, keeping going. So on page 6 and into 7, there's a lot of red, new added language. Anything that was read was not in this model ordinance that we actually copied and pasted from wind and solar and pulled it over because we feel that it should apply to these energy projects as well. So having that as-built done at the completion of their project, engineering certificates, these are just to us, very basic requirements that were just not included. So we're throwing them in here not to try to challenge what the state's doing. We don't feel that any of this is more restrictive. We feel it adds clarity to what the state is requiring. On page 8, under warning signs, we did add a little bit more language. This was actually just done today. That's why I had to reprint that. The warning, as the model ordinance has written, facility owner shall comply with the requirements of NFPA 855, section 4.7.4. Does anyone know what that says? Because I don't. So it's not clear if warning signs are supposed to be posted at certain places. So we just went ahead and added the language that was in solar and wind for clarity. You go down to letter V. They didn't have anything about the handling of solid waste during construction, hazardous materials, well and septic. Now, typically, we're not going to see well and septic with an energy storage type project. However, if they opt for some type of agrivoltaics where they're bringing livestock to the property for vegetation management, they may need a well. So we're just making it clear who they'll have to work with if they go that route. On to page 9, again, we added the consulting fund paragraph. Paragraph X was added today, again, copied and pasted. This is requiring geotechnical boring report, making sure that the ground we're placing this equipment on is not a future sinkhole. On page 10, I have 10 and 11, there are some things that are highlighted. Those are just reminders for me to go back and verify that those all meet up when I get done with all of my revisions. Paragraph 5, again, that we're adding that waiver for that setback, vegetative screening. Paragraph C on page 12, they didn't have anything in there that the company would pay for any third-party costs, so we made sure that's in there. We've removed the hearing facilitator language on page 13 as the county no longer has a zoning board of appeals. We have the hearing officer, which would not require a hearing facilitator. Going on to page 14, again, this was copied and pasted from the solar. It's additional language, just making sure that we have all our bases covered. Conditions, revocation of a permit if necessary, transferring. So if they sell to a new owner, what procedure must they follow in that circumstance? And that is pretty much that. Any questions on energy storage?
As far as like decommission on page 5, why do we have, so like, I get it, it's got 18 months to, on number 1, to remove all, soil 3 feet of all structures
Yep.
and all that, but why don't we have a timeline of deconstruction on wind and solar?
So in wind and solar, it is dictated by the AMA. And so if you look in the AMA, it gives them 12 months to decommission under the AMA.
Okay,
So,
so if a wind or solar is trying to look at what we got in front of us, they'd have to go look up AMA to figure out that timeline.
yep. And that's how the state, we used to create our own decommissioning standards. And the state in 2023 said counties no longer get to do that. The AMA has it in its document. That's what we're going to follow. It's very basic language.
Okay, so should we look up AMA and decommission and wind and solar?
We can do that. Which page on,
14.
is that wind?
Wind and solar, I think the decommission and reclamation plan is about the same.
Okay.
So there is a place in here where it says if it fails for a period of 6 months. System has not stored energy for 12 months or that fails for a period of 6 months.
What page are you on?
Page 6, where it says decommission the energy storage system in accordance. This is within 18 months after abandonment. Is there anywhere in here that lists what happens if it catches fire? And it's destroyed, basically, or destroyed by a tornado or some sort of natural disaster? Is there an amount of time that they have to get that removed, like there is for wind and solar?
Well, it will come down to, are they going to repair it and continue on the use, or at that point decommission?
Gotcha, okay.
The
So-
insurance company is going to take 6 months to figure that out.
That's,
You want lithium
Unfortunately-
ion going into our soil for that long? Yeah, that's the problem. This would, if these catch fire, the contamination is much more,
Then it's an EPA issue.
well.
and
true.
and unfortunately, that's kind of what the state is making us do, is that in that situation, that's going to be our only remedy, is calling in IEPA.
Okay,
It's
gotcha.
not perfect.
Well,
But this
it is what it is.
this is really, it was done clearly very poorly and very quickly by the state to get something on the books, is how I feel like, and there are a lot of gaps. So
You filled a lot of them.
we're
I would say.
trying to fill as many as possible, because that's our concern, is what are we going to be left with?
Right.
What has been overlooked? I'll see if we can, see if I can figure something out for a time frame.
And maybe we would be better off by just saying that federal agencies, state agencies will be involved with the decommissioning and they'll decide. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's the direction, is to put it on somebody that will enforce things maybe quicker than we could. I don't know.
I don't have a lot of faith in the state enforcement process either, so.
Well, the EPA seems to have plenty of teeth usually, so. there's that.
Would like to think so. Okay, I'll try to figure out some way and see if there's something in there already that covers.
Do you want me to ask Farm Bureau if they have, I mean, other counties are probably having to do the same thing, right? To beef this up.
That would be my assumption. I mean, they would be foolish to adopt it as it was written.
What about requiring like a tier 1 environmental survey?
Is that, I thought that was already covered. So they have to comply with the EcoCat.
I'm talking down decommission.
Okay, so walk me
What-
through.
Yeah.
Okay, they decommission, they put the site back to rights. Tier 1 environmental survey is going to be a third-party company that comes in to do an assessment to see if it warrants further,
It's where it works.
if it needs more work. When you buy a commercial property, industrial property, you should have a tier 1 survey done to see what kind of hazards might exist already. So you're not liable for them.
So,
But when you take out a
Good
gas
thought.
pump, you gotta get some tests done afterwards.
Yeah, that would be
Right.
part of an environmental survey. And
Mhm.
then if there is evidence of something, then it escalates to a tier 2 where they go
but
dig further.
it's not our land. Now, to me, that would be something that would be negotiated in a contract between the private owner and the company. Are we overstepping our bounds by saying this must be done? Should we let our landowners decide what is appropriate for their land in future? I'm bringing up past arguments that have been made.
Sure.
So I don't have a feeling one way or another.
I guess I understand that as long as it is, as long as whatever would damage the property would not damage any groundwater or adjacent properties. But I'm not sure that that's true with these systems. I'm not that much of an
Yeah,
expert.
And that's a
no
valid
one
point,
is.
Right.
that if there's leaching chemicals,
Right.
a tier 1 should
We don't need this to become Brockovich here.
at least address that or
Mhm.
due diligence to find it.
Mhm.
And basically warrant that it's not there, because that's what they do. So there's disclaimer language in them. But it's an extra set of eyes making sure that the ordinance is carried out, that you want the property put back to rights.
Okay.
Or that, I mean, there's no risk to adjacent landowners or any natural resources.
Yeah.
That seems pretty
Yeah, I mean,
straightforward.
You know, if this is near a stream or something else, then sure. Well, 10 years down the road, it might be leaching into the stream.
Or you've got a
Like
high water
Columbia River
table.
with the Hanford site out in Washington. I mean, that's 50 years down the road.
So would the requirement apply to all projects or projects located within certain amount of distance of a stream, natural?
It should apply to all projects. It should apply to solar. It should apply to wind too.
Okay.
Basically, if there's a decommissioning plan, it should apply.
And that's where we run into this.
If the state says
Will
you
they
can't,
consider this more restrictive? than what they have. So I will have to I'm gonna run this by our state's attorney
Sure.
and get his opinion. Um,
I mean, it's no different than having an engineer's certificate when they're building a plant to say, yeah, this is, the plans meet the
Suitable.
code. It's certification after the fact of, yeah, the environmental meets the code and the intent of the ordinance.
And that's, and so in the past, what I've always run into is it's private property. The landowner should be making that call
Then why do we even have an ordinance?
because the state requires us to.
I'm just saying.
But are we talking, I'm sorry, are we talking, we're not talking about when they're building it though. We're talking about it if it's decommissioned, which means the
Yeah.
system was damaged. It's
Yeah.
not that we're
No.
preventing the
It's-
building of them,
it-
which I think is what the state is against.
Well, it's not necessarily damaged. It could be at an
It-
end of its life.
It's
So,
just no
true.
longer economically viable, but, so they're going to have to put things back to rights or find a different use for the property. But at that point, there should be a tier 1 environmental survey at minimum.
Which, I mean, I
mean,
agree.
You're
I think
talking
it should
about
be
a-
all-
probably a $10,000 exercise.
which is a
Peanuts.
drop in the bucket for them. So, okay. I don't know if we'll be able to squeeze it into wind and solar only because that specifically says we defer to the AMA and that's not required as part of the AMA.
Mhm.
I'm going to talk to the state's attorney and see if we can squeeze it in with energy storage because that language is different than wind and solar for whatever reason. Okay. If I can get that in there, I will absolutely do so.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns?
Only question is, tonight, are we just discussing or are we recommending adoption of the modified language in wind and solar?
It would be, if you are done hearing the matters, you would vote on them. If you're not done, we need to bring stuff back, then you would have to table it and we'll come back next month.
Well, I don't think we're done with storage.
Yeah, I think I would make a motion that recommend that we table it until we know more about whether we can include the
Okay,
amendments we talked about. Possible amendments,
Just storage?
or
both, all of them,
you want them all tabled?
because you said you were gonna ask, you didn't know if we could add those to the wind and solar or not, but the question was asked.
Yes.
So I'd say it's all three of them.
So, motion on the floor to table all three.
To table all three.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.